what I want to look at is actually the end of the parsha. Very often we don't get that opportunity, but today the end of the parsha really is the end of the Sefer Vayikra, and so it's worthwhile just having a look to see what happens at the end and to see if we can find something that's important for us to 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 take something from. So I'm not going to go all the way to the whole of the maftir, but one of the things that it speaks about is it speaks about tithing, and then it speaks about the tithing of your flocks. And the Torah says, when you want to tithe your flocks or your herds, whatever the case is, then the way you do it is that you pass all your flocks over a staff of some sort, a shepherd's staff, and then the way Rashi explains it, then you tap it. The 10th one is holy to Hashem. The way Rashi explains it, he says that when you want to come to take Meiser, you bring them through an opening, so kind of like in single file. And the 10th one you color with a little bit of some type of coloring. To know that 10th one is the 10th. And you do this every year for the lambs and the calves that are born. So every year you have to bring the tithing of your sheep or your goats, whatever the case is. And the way you do it, we said, is that, so that's just always, whenever I hear that, it just reminds me, we don't always identify the two things together. But on Rosh Hashanah, we speak about kavakarat ro'eh edro, in the way that the ro'eh checks his flock. It's the same way. It's the same thing, that it passes through, and we each get labeled in some way as we pass through. Before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we labeled in some way with this colored stick as to what will happen to us in the year, and that's really what happens. That's Yeh Kodesh LaHashem. That 10th becomes Kodesh LaHashem. Says Rashi, what does it mean that becomes Kodesh LaHashem? Lekrav lemizbeach damo ve'emorav. You have to bring its blood and its limbs up on the mizbeach. But the meat, the actual meat of the korban, doesn't just get burnt up or doesn't go to the kohanim. It's actually eaten by the baalim themselves, by the owners of the flocks. It's not like any of the other gifts to the kohanim. We find that we don't. The meat is not given to the kohanim because there's something special about this tithing, that whilst it has to be dedicated to Hashem, we're still able to get the benefit from that. So then it says, then the next pasuk says, Lo yevaker ben tov lara, v'lo yimirenu. So this is quite interesting, right? So you brought your 10, you just pass them through in single file, no specific order that you set them up in. You pass them through, v'lo yevaker ben tov lara. You're not allowed to look which is good, which is bad. Lo yimerenu, you're not allowed to substitute. Vim hameri merenu hayahu utmaraso yekodesh lo yigal. And if you do make a substitution, what you're wanting to do is either you want to get something better because you want to give it to Hashem, or you might actually want to bring something even worse, God forbid, right? Then in such a case, you're not actually allowed to make any substitutions, because this is the way it works. And I suppose this is very much what we sometimes don't realize in our lives, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts everything in play. The 10th, we think that we counted the 10th. We think that we're the ones that put the animals in the order that they're going to go, and so that every 10th that you touch is the one that you've chosen to be the 10th that is going to be brought up to Hashem. But that's not the case. The reality is that the process of the way our world works is that whilst we think that we're in control, we're not. And so therefore, the 10th that is chosen, whether it be good or bad, or look good or look bad, it doesn't make a difference. That's the one that's chosen by Hashem, because that's the one Hashem wants. And so therefore, you're not allowed to substitute it in any way, shape, or form. Sorry, I just want to get the Rabbeinu Bachaya says, going back on this whole story, what does it mean that you that you bring it under the shevet, you bring it in, under the shepherd's staff? he says that it's all part of that. It's not up to you. It's totally and 100% in the hands of Hashem, as we said before, and it's not for us to decide which one goes. The one goes to death, and the other one goes to life. And why? He says we can't learn how to bring korbanot from this, because there can be anything. The 10th could be an animal that's totally damaged. If the 10th is an animal that's damaged, so then all one has to do is that one lets it. One can't bring it up as a korban, and one has to just allow it to retain its kedusha. But the way so that's how the process. That's the end of the mitzvahs of Vayikra. The end of the mitzvah of Vayikra really comes out to show us that at the end of the day, all these things are about becoming what? Kodesh LaHashem, Lo Yigael. We are not in any way able to move out of that process. And the final verse of the Sefer is Eile HaMitzvot Asher Tzivah Adonai et Moshe El Bnei Yisrael B'Har Sinai. These are the mitzvot that Hashem commanded Moshe El Bnei Yisrael, to Bnei Yisrael, for Bnei Yisrael B'Har Sinai, on Har Sinai. And the Rabbeinu Bachaya says, Elu HaMitzvot Amar Rabbi Ila. Rabbi Ila quotes from one of the Tanaim. Im asitin otam katiknan. If we do the mitzvahs as they were set out to do, harahein mitzvahs, v'im lo eina mitzvahs. If we do the mitzvahs, these are the mitzvahs which Hashem commanded. If we do the mitzvahs as they're formulated, so then they're considered to be mitzvahs. But v'im lav eina mitzvahs, then they're not mitzvahs. We can't do a mitzvah, half a mitzvah. Half a mitzvah is not a mitzvah. We have to do it according to the detail that HaKadosh Baruch Hu ascribed to that mitzvah. And on that, Hashem says, says these are the mitzvahs. Why does it mean these are the mitzvahs? Is that this is the end. That these are the definitive things, and you can't have anybody to come and create new mitzvahs. This is what Hashem commanded Moshe. And he had commanded El Bnei Yisrael that Moshe is the one who was chosen by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give to Bnei Yisrael, and Bnei Yisrael are zoiche because of who they are and the capacity and the potential that they have in order to fulfill these mitzvahs to the end. B'Har Sinai, why is it so important that we ascribe everything back? The last words of this parasha are Har Sinai. Why is it so important? Shekulam nemru b'Sinai. We have to remember that everything is nemru b'Sinai. It was said at Har Sinai, and says that the Rabbeinu Bachaya, v'kavanat hamidrash hazeh lahem ki ma shenechtam hasefer beloshen ela mitzvahs hi lehoros. Why is it finished in this way? Ki ha-mitzvahs nitzchiyot kayamot ledorot. Because the mitzvahs are forever, and they last for all generations. Ki kein milat eileh. That's what it means when it says the word eileh. Lashon Amidah v'kiyum la'ad. When we say the word Eile HaMitzvot, Eile HaMishpatim, which is the parish of Mishpatim, which is in Shmot, just after Yitro, the word Eile means Amidah Kiyum La'ad. It means it stands and exists forever, and that's why we might think that even though we don't have a Beit HaMikdash, even though we don't have the capacity right now to be able to bring these korbanot, that most of Vayikra is around korbanot in some way, be it for the Chagim or other things. We might think that even though that because we don't have the Beis Hamikdash, that this no longer applies. But comes along the Torah, and the Rabbeinu Bachai explains it. He says, Eile HaMitzvot. These mitzvot are there forever. Is that whilst it might be that right now we don't have it, nonetheless we have to remember that at the end of the day, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us these things, and there will be a point in time, at some later point in time, we will be able, if we can't do it now, we'll be able to do it, because these mitzvot, the bringing of korbanot are nitzchiot, they're forever, they're going to be part of our lives, and part of that is such an important thing for us to understand, and perhaps this is the right way to end the Sefer of Vayikra. Vayikra started, Vayikra Hashem called. And what was the calling? The calling was for us, and then it spoke about what are the korbanot that we have to bring. And the purpose of the korban, as we've said before, is not to come and shecht an animal and bring it to Hashem, but rather is for us to feel that we are coming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In our world in which we live, how do we do that? We don't have korbanot, elo ha-mitzvot. These, we have to do it through the process of mitzvot, asher tzivah Hashem. If we do the mitzvot that they're supposed to be done, then we're able to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and feel that moment of Har Sinai. It's an appropriate time for us to be completing Sefer Vayikra, as we have another week to go. Please God, where we stand before Har Sinai and to receive the Torah. Please God, everybody should have a beautiful Shabbos. It's Yom Yerushalayim as well on Sunday night. So I wish everybody should have a festive, beautiful Yom Yerushalayim. It's difficult to transition from the pain of the deaths of the 45 people that died at Meirat, and as well as a couple of terrorist attacks that have happened during the week. It's difficult to transition from that to the simcha and the joy of Yom Yerushalayim. But at the end of the day, the fact is that we have Yerushalayim. Because we have Yerushalayim, we're able to manifest as much as we can our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Am Yisrael, in a true and beautiful way. So please God, it should all be b'simcha, it should be joyful, and we should use that as the foundation of going forward into the new month towards Matan Torah on Shavuot. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful Shabbos. We'll see you, please God, next week.
You too. Thanks very much.